Good morning. Dang it. That's the second time I've done that. Tripping over the cord.
Does anybody know anybody from OSHA?
I just had a roof put on. That was a nightmare. Okay, so I'm following dogs. That's just not the best place to be, following dogs. Next will be like little kids I have to follow or something. Anyway, and it is boring. We're doing record keeping this morning. So how many of you had to electronically submit your record keeping last year? Not too many. If you were supposed to do it and you didn't do it, you can still be cited for not doing it. Up till June 30th, probably, somewhere around June 30th. So, and you can't put it in now anyway, so just hope you don't get an inspection. So we'll go ahead and get started. Michelle introduced me, but there is my information. I am much better at email, replying to emails. Don't say that to Pamela. But I'm much better with replying to emails than telephone. So please take down my email. If you ever have a question or something, please feel free to ask me your question. I may not be able to reply in writing to you, but if I can't, I'll just ask you for your phone number and I'll give you a call. But don't feel like, oh, I can't ask Joan a question because she'll send somebody out to do an inspection. Not the case. I don't do enforcement. I'm completely compliance assistance. So we're going to talk about the electronic submission of your records. And I was asked to actually go through the steps for those of you who haven't had to do it, may have to do it soon. Unfortunately, they gave us an opportunity to go on it prior to it being put out to the public, and I didn't get a chance to do it. So with the help from a friend from the industry, we were able to put this presentation together. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this on and get started. For those of you who have not had to put the electronic submission in, you can get to it from our home page. But if you need the actual website, it's just www.osha.gov, injury reporting, and then the index and the HTML. You have three ways that you can submit it. You can manually enter the data into a web form. You can upload a comma-separated values file, or you can use the automated record-keeping system by using an API system. That's way computer geeky for me, that one. The comma-separated values, easy enough, and the manual. We're going to go through the manual form. Now, one thing they did request from the offices is if you have a problem with that form that we really can't help you with it, that they want you to contact the help desk. Number one, it makes their program better. Number two, they don't want us screwing up their system. So anyway, they want you to use that help request form. I tried using it because I wanted to do an account for myself, a fake company. They didn't have to know that, but they never contacted me ever again. So anyway, so I wanted to see if it had been cited, and it has been cited. So the people that are getting cited mostly, and remember, the citations would have been from January 1st, and this was run last week, April 1st. So the employees that had the 20 to 249, the ones that are more likely not to know that they had to electronically submit the record keepings were cited more, and we had 29 violations, and this is countrywide, federal information only. So we had 29 of them, and they're being cited as other than serious, which is good. And then for the larger companies, there was 5 of those citations, which I'm really surprised that we had larger companies that did not know that they had to submit. And again, they were also other than serious. So at this time, they are citing them only as other than serious. If you don't report fatalities or you don't report serious injuries, those are sometimes cited as serious violations. So I also thought, okay, let's see in comparison to other record-keeping standards. So I asked the region to run me a report, again, for federal data. And this is for FY17 for us. So that ended in September 30th. And as you can see, reporting serious injuries is the #1 record-keeping citation, which doesn't surprise me with 658 of them. A lot of people still do not know that they have to report all hospitalizations, amputations, and loss of eyes. We still have, or they say, we're just not going to report it and hope they don't find out about it. Problem is, someone typically calls in a complaint about an issue, or we get a workers' comp report. So it's best just to go ahead and call it in. #2, copies to the government representative. If OSHA's asking for your OSHA 300 forms, how much time do you have to give that to the OSHA person? Come on. That's pretty good, ASAP. I heard 8, I heard 24, and I heard 4. 4 hours. You have 4 business hours to get those reports to OSHA. So if you don't have them, you need to get your hands on them as soon as possible. #3 is reporting fatalities. Guys, if you have a fatality, go ahead and report it to OSHA. We find out about them. When do you not have to report a fatality to OSHA? What? Not work related, but how do you know if it happens at work?
After working hours.
After working hours, but they're still on premise and you have a fatality? Does he have to report that?
Yeah, it's in the premises.
Yeah. When do you not have to report a fatality? What? Yeah, if you're a public agency, you don't have anything to do with OSHA. I see a hand. So polite.
It happens on the highway as a result of a motor vehicle accident, unless it's in the construction zone.
Right. If it's in a work zone, you would still need to report it. But if it's on public roads, we're not going to handle it. The police are going to handle it. Same with airplanes, trains, public transportation. If it is not work-related, natural causes, then you would not have to report it. But again, how do you know if it's natural causes? If you have someone sitting at their desk and they have a massive heart attack, there's a good chance that it is not work-related. But you may not find that out until 10 hours or 24 hours later. So it's best just to go ahead and report it to OSHA and say it's an apparent heart attack, but we don't know at this point, so we're just reporting it. OSHA can get the ME report within a 24-hour period, and they go ahead and decide. So just go ahead and report your fatalities. We may not do the inspection. And I know, because this week is the National Fall Stand Down, I was looking at the number of fall inspections our region did. No, and state of Florida did inspections, 23 for the whole year. I was like, I know there was more fall fatalities than that. So that just there tells me, you know, they're in public sector, we don't have that employee-employer relationship or something that we're not inspecting them. So there's more out there. So there was 88 of those countrywide of not reporting fatalities. So, and they were all other than serious. Guess they're other than serious. They were citing them serious. Must use forms or equivalent forms. Where we're having the problem with that is people want to do their own OSHA 300s or the 300As or the 301s, workers' comp forms, and they don't have the same information. You need to compare the forms and make sure that the forms are equivalent. You need to complete the forms. Just have to complete the forms. A lot of people don't total up the OSHA 300s. A lot of people don't fill them in correctly. If you don't know how to fill those forms in correctly, you need to sit through my annual OSHA record keeping class that we do in Tampa every year in January. Timely manner for recording. How quickly do you have to get that injury or that illness or that fatality on that OSHA 300? How many days you got? 7 what? 7 days? 7 calendar days. Used to be 6 working days. Don't even ask me how they came up with that number, but now it's 7 calendar days. You got to get that on there. Recording the injury or illness or fatalities. You got to record them, guys. OSHA will look at other forms or talk to your employees, and if you have an employee that says, yeah, I got a cut, it wasn't a big deal, but it got infected, and a week later I had to go to the doctors, we don't see that on the OSHA 300, you're going to get cited for it. So make sure you actually record the injury or illness or the fatality. Post your annual summary. Has everybody still got theirs up? No, right? When did you take it down? Yeah, you took it down last week, right? Wasn't that last week? You took it down last week. Are you going to get cited if it's still up now? No. But you have to have that posted from February 1st to April 30th. What happens is you post it and someone needs a piece of paper and they're like, oh, I'll just use this. It's been up here for a while. Got to keep an eye out on it. And then time for posting. I don't even know what that is, sorry. It could be that they're not doing it for the whole period. And then make sure that you have a log for each establishment. We get those records all the time. We're like, holy cow, how many injuries and illnesses have you had? And it's for the whole company. You need to be able to peel those off for each establishment. So if you have 5 employees at one establishment, do you have to keep a log? If you have 5 employees at one establishment, do you have to keep a log? Yes, you have to keep a log. The exemption for employee size is for the whole company, not for the establishment. The exemption for low hazard industries is for the establishment. So I'll use Disney as my example. If you have Disney World, are they exempt? No, they're amusement. But what about a Disney store in the mall that has 5 employees? Are they exempt? Why? Why do you say no? Disney stores are their own establishments. They're not hooked, Disney store in Brandon Mall is not hooked to Disney World in Lake Buena Vista. So they're their own establishment. They're in a low hazard industry. They don't have to keep records. Not to say that they don't or something, but they don't have to. So remember, the exemption for the size of company is based on the whole company, not just the establishment. If you're a dry cleaner, you have 15 employees between 5 stores, that means you have 3 employees at each store. You have to keep a OSHA record log for each of those stores. Okay, so getting back onto there. So for those of you who have already entered your information, you can jump into putting in your 2017 data today, right? Has anyone done their 2017 data? Anyone already do it? Put it in? Are you waiting for that to go away?
Yes.
It's not going away. Go ahead and put it in. You can't put in the OSHA 300 information. You can't put in the OSHA 301 information. You could only put in the 300A. That's going to stick, guys. I don't think that's going to change. So if you go, and I think our web page has actually changed since I did this slide, but if you go to our main page, www.osha.gov, you will see, let's see, did I get this? Right there, submit 2017 data electronically. You can't do 2016, that time has passed. We're taking it now. So you can click on that, and if you have an account, you can go and launch right into the electronic tracking. But one thing that you have to do, and I'm assuming you can change this as time goes by, as your company gets bigger, you need to decide how you're going to enter the data. And the best thing to do is look up that information and decide, how are you going to enter the data? How are you going to get started? Look at those links right there first. If you have an account, you're going to launch right there. Launch ITA. And click on that, and Godspeed. Anyway, so if you don't have an account, you need to set up an account. And this is what I tried to do. So you need to set up the account. So we're going to go ahead and put in an account. They ask for an email, so we're putting in an email. We put in a password, and you can log in. That's if you have an account. If you don't have an account, you're going to need to create it. And that is, it's the same web page, but it's this right up here. So you're going to click on that to create an account. Oh, that didn't work. Anyway, so we're going to create an account. We're going to put the information in. We're going to put in the name of the person, their last name, the name of the company, their job title, their email address. We're going to confirm their email address. We're going to put in a phone number, and we're going to put in the username. So we got all that information put in. Username, I believe, is optional. Then it's going to ask you, are you a robot? It took me about 20 pictures to figure out how to do this. So I'm like, there's only 4 slides that have cars in them. But they kept on saying, no, there's something different. So just hit skip until you find one that you can do. And then you're going to acknowledge that you've read this information. And you're going to put your check in, and you're going to hit continue. And you are going to have created an account. They're going to send you an email to verify you. I never got that email. I clicked on it again, never got that email. I clicked on it at least a dozen times, never got that email. So, Godspeed. I don't know what to tell you. I've had other people tell me that they had problems just creating the account. Anyone else have problems creating the account? No one? So it was operator error on my part? I wouldn't doubt it. But there's that help request form. I clicked on that. I didn't hear from them. So anyway, so you've created your account, and now you can put the information in. Just like if you had started that page with an account. So here you have 2 choices. When you come up on this screen, you have 2 choices. You can either create an establishment, or if you put your information in last year, you already have establishments in there. So you can view the establishments. We're going to go ahead and create an establishment. So let's say your company expanded, or one of your establishments now has to keep records, and you want to put that establishment in. So we're going to go ahead and do this. You have 2 choices. We're going to create the establishment first. Here, this company, they have already put in 15 establishments from the year before, but for this year, 2017, it's saying that you haven't added that information. But last year you had 15 of them. So let's go ahead and create the establishment. The establishment is two-tone. The company name is Jenny Mania. The address is 3050 College Avenue, Ruskin, Florida, 33578. And they are a retro store, secondhand merchandise store. And they have less than 20 employees. Do they have to keep records? Do they have to keep records? Why? We don't really know. Do they have less than 10 employees? What's the size of the company? We don't really know. Do they have to electronically put in their information if they have less than 20 employees? No. The answer is no. So we checked off under 20, and it says here, Florida does not require establishments with less than 20 employees to report their data to OSHA. Right? Other states may require, the state-run plants may require something more stringent than OSHA. They may say any amount of employees you have to put it in. But we don't require it. And then when we try to get out of this, clicked OK, the computer crashed on us, and we had to start all over. So don't put in less than 20 employees. So we created the establishment. Now let's go ahead. Well, we're going to view the establishment list. We're going to take a look at it. So like I said, they've put in 20 or 15 different establishments. The name's not there. I just put the locations there because if the names were there, you would know who this data belongs to. So we're going to click on one of them, and we're going to put in the information. So again, the establishment information's already been put in from the year before, so we don't have to worry about this. But now what we're going to do is we're going to add the OSHA 300A summary information. This form comes up. For this presentation, I split the form so you could see it. So the top half of this form is this right here. And it is two-tone. We're going to put in the average number of employees, 5. Wait a second. We said on that last screen if it was less than 20, you don't need to put it in. We're putting 5 here. This store, they went from 25 employees to 5. The store is no longer in existence. They downsized that store until they put it away. But because they had, at one point, more than 10 employees, they have to enter that data. So they're putting the average number of 5 employees in. They're putting the total hours. Well, those 5 employees worked a heck of a lot of hours if they put in 9,932 hours. That's because there was other employees. The number before was average. And it says, did any work-related injuries or illnesses occur at this establishment in this year? The answer is yes. So they go ahead and put their information in. They had no fatalities. They had no cases with lost work days. They had no cases of restrictions or transfers, but they did have 2 other recordable cases. Put that information in. They were both injuries, so they put the 2 there, and they were done. So for 15 establishments, manually putting this in is not that bad. But if you think about a large company that has 1,000 employees or 2,000 or 10,000 employees, this could be somewhat difficult, and that's why they would go to that comma separated or the other form, the API form. So this person, when they submitted this information, they got an email back from OSHA, and it says, don't reply, but on December 13th, 2017, at 10:43 a.m., you successfully submitted the data following the following establishment. And they put the name in, which I took out, and the address. So the information was submitted, and they got a confirmation. If you don't get the confirmation, you want to hit that help request form and find out why you didn't get the confirmation. So the other thing is the batch data transmission. I can't help you with this because it's too geeky for me. It's too computer geeky. But really, most people are just going to go to their IT person and say, we have so much data, we want to submit it this way. And a lot of that was because the original standard said for those companies that had 250 more employees, they were going to have to submit the OSHA 300s, the 300As, and the 301s. And that data was going to have to be cleaned up before they submitted it to OSHA. Those two things are probably the things that are going to drop out. We still haven't had rulemaking on it, but I am almost positive, I say that, I don't want to swear by it, but I'm going to say that the 300 and the 301s, they will probably be dropped out even for the 250. So basically what it will be is the 250 and the 20 to 249 size employers will have to submit their data of the OSHA 300A. So there's lots of outreach material on our website that you can go to. This is all spelled out. Originally when I was doing this presentation, I was like, oh, I'm just going to use what's on the internet site because they have the data right there. They're showing you, they're going through the screens and stepping you through it. Problem was, when I blew them up for the PowerPoint, did not work out, so I had to rely on somebody else. But there's lots of information on our website that will help you put the data in. For those of you that have put the data in, did you have problems? Did anyone have problems? That it really was operator error for me, wasn't it? Okay, well, that's good that you didn't have problems. That's the end of my presentation. I didn't figure it would last 45 minutes. Does anybody have any questions on this or any other record keeping questions? Uh-huh. I couldn't hear the question. Okay, so for it to be an establishment, the requirement is that the establishment or the site or the facility has to be there for a year. I mean, that's what determines it to be an establishment. So if you have a construction site that's going to be a year long, then that's going to have its own OSHA 300 form. So when you report, are you talking about electronics, Mike, are you talking about electronic submission? So that construction company, what they're going to do is they're going to create an establishment, just like we saw here, and they're going to put that information in as if it was a store or, you know, a manufacturing facility. They're going to put that information in. The next year, when they see establishment, they're not going to do anything with it because it won't exist anymore.
Another question right here.
Uh-huh. Yes. So the question was, wasn't there something about you don't have to report fatality or injury, amputation, hospitalization, loss of eye, if it's beyond 30 days? And that is true. You do not report it to OSHA. If we find out about it, we will go probably ahead and do an inspection, but you will not be cited for it because that is part of the rule. And the reason for that is, let's say someone gets injured today and they die 45 days from now from those injuries. OSHA is assuming you've already done that accident investigation and have taken care of the hazards that caused that incident, and it would be hard for us to go back and recreate. So there is that exemption, yes. Any other questions? It's your time for record keeping questions.
How about amputations?
What about them?
What's an amputation?
What's an amputation? If it's off your body? Nope, nothing about bone. Nope, ears were exempted. Don't ask me why. You can cut off an ear, but if you cut off the fleshy tip of your finger, it's an amputation. But if your ear's gone, it's not an amputation. Haven't figured that one out. Was there another question over here?
If it's reattached, it still counts as an amputation.
What?
Okay, I get my finger cut off. Now they reattach it. Do I still report it as an amputation?
It is still an amputation. Or if it's just dangling there and the doctor cuts it off, it's an amputation.
So when you say fleshy part of the finger, it does not have to be bone, just the fleshy part.
Right. The proposed standard was something about bone, and then they said no. So we get calls almost every day for amputation of fleshy pieces of skin from deli meat slicers. Yeah, think about that. Any other questions? The question was, do the injuries have to be in the order of them occurring? No, you have 7 days. So let's say you have a injury today, and you have one on Friday. The Friday one gets recorded, and then you want to go ahead and put it, I'm assuming you're legally writing these in. Then you go ahead and record this one, that's fine.
And what about if an employee is injured on the 1st and then doesn't seek treatment until the 15th of the next month? Then it's
If
not-
you can pinpoint when the injury happened, you always put in the date that it occurred. If you can't determine that, then you may have to rely on when it was reported to you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? This is your record keeping questions. I knew the electronic submission wouldn't take that long.
On hospitalization, do you have to be admitted when you get a hospitalization? Or if you go to the emergency room, that's not count?
If you're just going to the emergency room, it doesn't count. Problem is, in the emergency room, they quite often do some type of medical treatment, so it's going to be recordable, but you don't have to report it.
Along those lines of hospitalization, if you're hospitalized for observation or diagnostic testing, it's not reportable.
It's not recordable or reportable. If it's strictly for observation. Any other questions?
So if they admit him in the hospital, then we got to report it?
Yes, if they're admitted to the hospital, they need to report it. There's also something about admitting to clinics. Like if you get in real rural areas, they don't have hospitals. So if they're admitted to a clinic, so it might be like a 2-bed clinic, that would also be included, that you would need to report it. Any other questions?